Peasenhall was a small Suffolk village where life moved at a predictable pace. In the early years of the 20th century, most residents worked locally, attended chapel, and knew one another by name. Nothing about the village suggested notoriety. Its streets were quiet, its routines familiar, and its reputation unremarkable. Among those living there was a young woman named Anne Harsent. She was 22 years old and employed as a domestic servant by William and Georgiana Crisp, an elderly couple who lived at Providence House, a modest home near the center of the village. Rose's duties were ordinary household cleaning, errands, and assistance with chapel upkeep. She was regarded as reliable and reserved, and she attended the primitive Methodist chapel in nearby Sibton, where many local workers gathered for worship. The chapel's choirmaster was William Gardner, a foreman at Smythe's Seed Drill Works, one of the village's main employers. Gardner was married, the father of 6 children, and held a position of quiet respect within the community. His home stood on the main street within view of Providence House. In 1901, murmurs began to circulate. 2 men claimed to have seen Gardner enter the Wesleyan Methodist Chapel in Peasenhall, while Rose was working there alone. The observations were brief, but speculation followed. These remarks soon reached Gardner's wife, Georgiana, and a formal church inquiry was initiated under the supervision of Reverend John Guy. The investigation produced no conclusive findings. Nothing could be proven, and Gardner denied any impropriety. He warned that he would take legal action against those spreading the stories. Officially, the matter ended. Socially, it did not. Late on the night of 31st May 1902, a violent thunderstorm passed over Peasenhall. Rain fell heavily, and the village settled into darkness. By morning, the quiet routine of the place would be permanently altered. Shortly after dawn on 1 June 1902, William Harsent, Rose's father, arrived at Providence House. When he entered the kitchen at the foot of the attic stairs, he discovered his daughter lying on the floor. The scene suggested a sudden and forceful incident had taken place during the night. Local authorities were notified immediately. Early assumptions suggested the possibility of a self-inflicted act, but this explanation was soon reconsidered. The condition of the scene, the injuries present, and signs of attempted concealment led investigators to conclude that another person had been involved. It was determined that Rose had been several months pregnant at the time. This discovery shifted the direction of the inquiry. Attention returned to the earlier chapel rumors and to the man whose name had already been quietly discussed. William Gardner was taken into custody on 3 June 1902. His arrest caused immediate division within the village. Some believed the accumulated circumstances pointed strongly in one direction. Others found it difficult to accept that a respected foreman and chapel leader could be responsible for such an act. Gardner denied all accusations. He maintained that he had no improper relationship with Rose and that the rumors had been exaggerated or fabricated. Nonetheless, the proximity of his home, the unresolved church inquiry, and the pregnancy placed him at the center of the case. The proceedings took place at Ipswich Assizes, held at the County Hall. The first hearing began on 7 November 1902. Presided over by Sir William Grantham. The prosecution was led by Henry Fielding Dickens, while Ernest Wilde appeared for the defense. Over 3 days, witnesses described village routines, chapel activities, and the events surrounding the stormy night. The case relied heavily on inference rather than direct proof. No witness could place Gardner inside Providence House during the critical hours. The physical evidence was limited, and much of the argument rested on personal relationships and circumstance. After deliberation, the jury failed to reach agreement. Reports later suggested that 11 jurors favored one conclusion, while a single dissenting voice prevented a decision. A second hearing was convened on 20th January 1903, this time under Sir John Compton Lawrence. Once again, the arguments were presented. Once again, the jury remained divided this time, reportedly in the opposite direction. Under the legal standards of the period, a unanimous verdict was required. Without it, the court could not formally resolve the matter. The prosecution then issued a no prosequi, bringing proceedings to an end without a judgment. Gardner was released, but without formal clearance. The absence of a verdict meant the case remained legally unresolved. William Gardner returned to life in Peasenhall under a shadow that never fully lifted. Though free, he remained under suspicion. He continued working and living in the village, but the unanswered questions followed him for the rest of his life. Gardner passed away in 1941, nearly 4 decades after the events at Providence House. No further legal action was ever taken. The case continued to attract attention long after those directly involved were gone. Writers, historians, and broadcasters revisited the details, drawn by the unusual outcome and the unresolved nature of the proceedings. In a later television examination, Julian Fellows suggested an alternative explanation. He proposed that Gardner's wife may have acted out of personal distress, speculating that she might have spoken openly had her husband been formally convicted. This theory remains unproven, like all others connected to the case. Today, the house still stands in Peasenhall. The village remains quiet. The records remain incomplete. More than a century later, the question at the heart of the case remains unanswered. Not because it was forgotten, but because certainty was never reached.